All right, let's jump right into the highlights of this fight. Again, for the IBF Welterweight Championship of the World, David Avanesyan, on only 4 weeks' notice, gave it all he had, Shawn, but it wasn't nearly enough.
Man, he came stronger body than I knew he had. Like Sergio said earlier, a game plan. He was ready to be very defensive and then unload whenever the opportunity presented itself. And when he did that, he actually did score and he actually did land. I'm not going to jump on the this was an off night train for Boots. This was not an off night, but he did say I felt a little off. There's a difference. When you have an off night, you don't win. This wasn't a bad night for him, an A performance, and he got it done.
That's perfectly put, Shawn, because it wasn't an off night, but that's how great this man is. That's how great he wants to be in his hometown. He thinks that's an off night. That was a beautiful performance with a tough fighter that's been in there with some elite talent. He's been in there. Avanesyan has been in there with Bud Crawford. This man was able to do exactly what Bud did and did it a little bit earlier. If that was an off night, I want to see him when he's on, because that was incredible.
Well, it took Crawford 6 rounds to stop him. It took Boots, 5 full rounds, and then still, I guess he wins that nudge. But the question now is, what's next for Boots? Chris, obviously we all want to see him fight Terence Crawford. That doesn't seem realistic at all. Who do you think he fights next?
I wouldn't say it's unrealistic at this point, because the possibility of a Crawford fight in Saudi Arabia lurks out there. Look, Turki Al-Sheikh has an excellent relationship with Terence Crawford. He has talked about this exact fight in the past. If he comes to the table and says, I've got money to make Terence Crawford and Boots Ennis either in Riyadh or here in the U.S., that's a makeable fight. Look, money talks in this business, so I do think that's makeable. If it's not a Bud Crawford fight, you have to look at the other welterweight champions. Mario Barrios, Amantas Stanionis, both those guys PBC affiliated. There has been some talk of a unification fight between those two, but nothing as of yet. Ryan Norman Jr., who is the interim champion at the WBO, he's going to be upgraded at some point. There has been more talk about Norman fighting Teofimo Lopez at some point later this year. So unification fights are going to be difficult for Boots Ennis. But how about a fight at 154? Vergil Ortiz is back on DAZN on August 10th. And look, I spent years hyping up and talking about a Vergil against Boots fight. That fight would have to take place at 154. Vergil's not coming back down to 147. But Eddie Hearn told me this week that if he can't make a big fight for Boots at welterweight, they are ready to go up to junior middleweight. Now, I'll tell you what, guys, Vergil against Boots, that is a can't-miss fight in any weight class.
Absolutely.
Shawn, I'm going to ask you the million-dollar question. You've been in there with Terence Bud Crawford.
Why are you being that?
Do I need to be ask the question?
No,
what happens if Boots fights Bud?
I think it's a mirroring fight. I think both guys have so many of the same attributes, do so many of the same things. They both have that raw dog, chip on the shoulder kind of mentality. It's a pick'em fight at this point.
Really, pick'em?
I do believe it's a pick'em fight. If I had to pick, I would say Terence Crawford. When you do have the experience and you do have the matching speed, that's something we haven't seen with Boots. We haven't seen someone that has speed that matches, that has the ability to switch, that has power that matches quickness.
It's like the two Spider-Man.
Exactly.
You know what I think that fight will look like, Shawn? I think that fight will be a welterweight version of Riddick Bowe and Evander Holyfield. They throw the exact same punches. When one man throws a right hand, the other one throws a left. They both switch. They both are vicious body punches. They throw the exact same punches.
I could actually see them both just like that.
There you go.
Having moments where they get shook, but they're able to weather those storms because they both are very, very strong and mentally strong as well. It's a great fight. I do want to see the fight. We won't see it. Terence is looking for bigger and better, and if he doesn't get bigger and better than Boots, he's out the door. Timing just ain't right for that fight.
Yeah, look, I think we're going to learn a lot about Terence Crawford on August 3rd, right? Yeah. Like, Terence, he has been off for a year. His last fight was last July against Errol Spence. Now, Terence lives in the gym. You guys know that. So I'm thinking we're going to get the best of Terence Crawford. But he's also going up against a real live dog at 154. This is not a walk in the park for Terence Crawford. So if Terence winds up cruising through Madrimov in the same way he beat Errol Spence, that's only going to make a Boots Ennis fight that much bigger. And I'm telling you, that's only going to get Turki Al-Sheikh and the government in Saudi Arabia interested in putting that fight on.
But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Coming up 3 weeks from tonight, Terence Crawford in action against Madrimov. And Sergio, look past Madrimov at your own peril. He is the goods.
He's the goods, and he's been the goods. I mean, he's very strong physically, but he has a footwork that's very nifty. So he can get on angles. He can fight from both stances. So he's not going to be confused, or he's not going to be bewildered by the switching of Bud Crawford, because that's what he does himself. I think he's stronger. I think they both take good punches. That'll be an excellent fight. And it's an even matchup if you really think about it.
And then to look ahead again, another Riyadh season card, the Wembley edition. Anthony Joshua in the ring against Daniel Dubois. And if you looked at Daniel Dubois of, 8 months ago, you think Joshua is going to blow this guy out. But 2 fights later, Dubois looks like a legitimate contender.
I mean, Daniel Dubois has had 3 careers in a very short period of time. He came up as one of the better prospects in the heavyweight division, had that disappointing loss to Joe Joyce, rebounded from that loss, then another disappointing loss to Alexander Usyk, and now has had back-to-back wins. I don't think any fighter out there has taken more advantage of the opportunities in Saudi Arabia than Daniel Dubois, who's come up with 2 big wins in his last 2 fights. Look, I think this is going to be a war, but my big question for Daniel Dubois, can you take the right hands from Anthony Joshua that you took from Filip Hrgović? He walked through some rights from Hrgović in that fight a couple of months ago. Can he do the same thing against AJ? I can't wait to find out.
I can't wait to find out what happens 1 week from tonight. I'm headed down to Tampa, Florida. The problem child, Jake Paul, is back in action. Remember, Mike Tyson fell ill, so they postponed the fight with Jake Paul to November. So in steps Platinum Mike Perry. You've seen this guy. He is a nasty, nasty bare-knuckle fighter, and he is promising to end Jake Paul's boxing career. Got to get your predictions. I mean, could I not? We'll start with you, Sergio. Platinum Perry or Problem Child?
I've never seen Platinum Perry fight, but I'm going to go with Jake Paul. I think he's evolving nicely, and he's the only boxer between the two. I think Jake Paul by knockout.
Yeah, I like Platinum Perry. He brings a lot of energy to the ring. He has this vicious nature about him, but I think that can also get you in trouble. When you are Jake Paul, who's doing nothing but focusing on boxing, that means you're going to come to the ring a little crisper. It's going to be a get who gets who first kind of situation. Wild night. I like the way you said that earlier, but I'm going to pick Jake Paul to win.
Jake Paul by knockout. The right-hand power of Jake Paul is real.
Shows back up.
It's interesting. You say a boxer usually beats a puncher. Who would have known Jake Paul is now the boxer, ladies and gentlemen? The world is turned upside down, but you can see it live on pay-per-view next Saturday night from Tampa, Florida. For Chris Mannix, Sergio Mora, and Shawn Porter, I'm Todd Grisham. What a night it was. The first ever boxing card here at the Wells Fargo Center in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. A raucous crowd seeing Jaron Boots Ennis pick up yet another knockout win. We'll see you next week live from Tampa.
All right, now it starts.